Welcome to Candidate Conversations, part of Delaware Debates 2014, produced by Delaware Public Media in collaboration with the University of Delaware's Center for Political Communication. I'm Delaware Public Media News Director Tom Byrne. This Candidate Conversation, taped on the campus of Delaware State University, focuses on the race for state treasurer, and we are joined by the Republican candidate, one of the Republican candidates, Ken Simpler. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Tom.
Well, we'll start with the basic question. Why run for state treasurer?
Well, Tom, I think it gets mostly to the background that I bring to the job. And I grew up here in Delaware. I'm a Delawarean. My family's here. My extended family's here. The business that I formed and operate is here. And with 20 years of financial background, I became concerned that Delaware's finances aren't quite as sound as we'd like to think they are, and that the operations of the Treasury certainly came to my attention as somewhere where someone with professional experience, actually managing a $1 billion portfolio, and who's spent their whole life as a finance officer can bring some real value to the office and to the people of Delaware.
I want to delve a little bit more into your experience.
Sure.
In your professional experience, what do you feel makes you the best candidate for state treasurer, maybe separates you from the other candidates?
I think that there are three components of my background that Delaware voters should be familiar with. And the first chapter of my life as a financial professional was as an investor. I managed a $1 billion portfolio. I made investments all over the world, and I made them in such a way that not only did I manage the portfolio, which is very akin to what the treasurer does here in Delaware for our state portfolio securities, but I actually went around the world visiting these companies that I invested in. So I had the opportunity to see CFOs, CEOs, founders of companies literally all over the world. I managed offices in Tokyo, London, New York, Chicago, and San Francisco. So I really got to see a lot of businesses, and I got to see a lot of different ways of doing finance. And I took away the lesson that those companies with good financial systems succeeded and those with bad financial systems failed. And I brought those lessons back to Delaware for the business that we formed here in Delaware to manage properties, hotel properties, restaurant and retail properties here in Delaware. And I believe those same principles can be applied to the state of Delaware.
Do you see the state treasurer's office then more as a financial manager or an economic watchdog, or is it a little bit of both?
I think it gets to both because any financial manager worth his salt is also thinking about the broader economic climate. And when I try to think, a lot of people ask me along this campaign trail and even before, because I'm a financial manager, a simple question: how are we doing? How are we doing? But if you really try to answer that question, you realize it's a far more complicated question, because people don't just mean how are we doing right now. Mm-hmm. They don't just mean how am I doing. I think there is some collective component to it, and it's something that goes to the long term. Are we going to be okay? What is the path that Delaware is on? And if you peel back the onions of that, you realize there's a lot of moving parts there. There's the underlying economy, and how does the state affect the underlying economy? There's the conduct of the state's finances in its own regard. The billions of dollars that we spend every year, if we don't spend them wisely, if we don't get a good return on our investment, we're going to be poorer in the future, not richer. And that directly affects our prosperity as a people. But answering those questions, how we're doing, takes some rigorous thought. And I'd be happy to get into it with you, but that's one of the challenges, I think, of putting someone with a CFO mentality into this office, and someone who actually has the day-to-day acumen to manage a $2 billion portfolio and manage an office of finance personnel. It's what I've done with my life, and I think I'm a pretty good fit for the office. What
limits, if any, should there be on the state treasurer's role in managing and investing that portfolio?
I think the perfect safeguards were designed. It's not often that you get everything right the first time around, but I really do have to give credit to the DuPont administration back when they put this architecture in place, and they didn't necessarily reinvent the wheel, because what you basically have is you have a board structure, you have a management team, and you have an underlying sort of third-party outsourcing group. And those three components in the Treasury are the Cash Management Policy Board, the State Treasurer, and we have 9 portfolio managers who actually do the day-to-day trading in the accounts for us. I think that's a very sound structure, because at the board level, you get a board that meets twice a year formally, that sets very broad guidelines for the administration of our securities and our money. And then you have outside experts who are in markets every day actually trading the securities. But then the missing and crucial piece is you have that day-to-day person who is sitting at his desk or her desk and making sure that the managers are actually in compliance with the Cash Management Policy Board guidelines, and making sure that we're getting the return that we expect. So there's one person every day who's thinking about nothing more than the performance of our portfolio, and that's the job of the state treasurer.
Public trust has been an issue that's come up a fair amount in this campaign. How do you foster public trust in the State Treasurer's office?
You know, I think the public trust disintegrates when people don't believe that the office is being conducted in the manner it should. And Chip Flowers is no longer in this race. I don't know that it's worthwhile picking apart Chip's record, but he created, the impression that the Cash Management Policy Board might not be acting in a manner that was 100% consistent with the outcome that Delawareans would want, that there was some self-dealing on the Cash Management Policy Board level. I don't think that's true. He also cast some doubt on the performance record of the portfolio prior to him taking over his tenure. Frankly, he commissioned a report that said that performance actually had been quite good. What worries me is looking forward, and I think the Cash Management Policy Board members share this concern, is cash management is not the sleepy little business that it used to be. We are living today, and this is one of the reasons why I'm attracted to this job, we are living today in a world where financial markets are very uncertain. Central banks around the world, as most people who have watched the financial markets know, have basically issued lots of currency and liquidity into our system in order to try to shore up our economies after the Great Recession. That's created a lot of uncertainty in markets. It's what's resulted in us getting very low yields on some of the investments we're in. The time might be ripe to really rethink, to be the first state, no pun intended, that really rethinks how we do cash management, because the way we have always done it is not yielding the return we'd like, and it may be taking on more risk than what we really think we're incurring.
I want to finish up on financial literacy. Previous state treasurers have made that somewhat of a priority. Is this something you would consider a priority, and how would you foster that amongst the average Delawarean?
Yep. I put forward I hate to use the word plan, because I'm more of a practice and process guy. I think voters hear plans all the time, but I call a system of good finance being first in finance in Delaware. And one of the core components of what I deem any organization to have a great financial system is transparency. And when I say transparency, it means that we have to be educated about our collective finances. And I think it's I do know that financial literacy at the individual level is a problem in this country. Frankly, it's probably a problem everywhere. But what I've found as a money manager is that trying to educate people about their personal finances is a very hands-on task. Your finances are probably different than your neighbor's finances, or different than his neighbor's finances or her neighbor's finances. Giving you general tools and general principles can be helpful. But really, if you want financial advice in your individual life, it's best that you get that advice very much tailored to your specific circumstances. And quite frankly, the Treasurer's Office doesn't have the resources to educate 900,000 Delawareans on their finances. What the Treasurer's Office does have the resources to do is educate 900,000 people on our collective finances, to really boil down our state's finances into something that the average Delawarean can understand. Because we don't right now. We really don't know how to answer that question that I posed to you earlier. Mm-hmm. How are we doing? What are the things that really matter for the next 20 years? That's an education that I think the Treasurer could take on, and it's not getting done right now.
Ken Simpler, Republican candidate for State Treasurer, thank you very much for your time.
Tom, been my pleasure.
You can find all of our candidate conversations online at DelawarePublicMedia.org and DelawareDebates.org. Candidate conversations are taped here at Delaware State University and are part of Delaware Debates 2014, produced by Delaware Public Media in collaboration with the University of Delaware's Center for Political Communication. I'm Delaware Public Media News Director Tom Byrne. Thanks so much for joining us.